Chapter 81. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As the demon's body completely collapsed, it turned into nothing and completely disappeared from this world. The entire kingdom of music regained its peace. Ningchuan stood in the center of the battlefield, feeling the powerful force surging in his body, and a satisfied look appeared on his face. He knew that he had completely mastered the demon's immortal power. Now, he not only has the ability to revive infinitely, but also has a powerful demon body. He already has both the abilities of the Golden Buddha and the demon body. His strength has also increased several times more than before. If the distance was not too far, he would like to go to the territory of the 4 emperors or the 5 elders now. At the moment when the demon king was completely destroyed by Ningchuan, the citizens of the entire kingdom of music burst into deafening cheers. Under the cheers of the enthusiastic citizens, Ningchuan and his friends were invited to enter the ruined palace to attend the grand celebration banquet. Although the palace was gone, but Ningchuan did not see any sadness on Gordon's face. On the contrary, his face was full of smiles. During the reign of King Gordon, he eliminated a demon that had existed in legends for hundreds of years. Such an achievement will surely make him leave a strong mark in the history of the kingdom of music. His reputation will probably be higher than that of the kings of all generations. There are such great benefits. Only one palace was damaged, and the dozens of houses outside were nothing at all. Hold a banquet, hold a banquet. King Gordon, don't be stingy with your good wine. Shanks shouted excitedly. This guy is probably the one who likes to hold banquets the most on the entire island. Under the king's order, soon, barrels of good wine that had been collected for decades were brought up. The most skilled chefs in the kingdom also cooked a variety of delicacies to entertain the heroes who saved their country. This is the highest treatment regardless of cost. Even Admiral Sengoku Lai can't enjoy such treatment. At the banquet, Shanks' eyes flashed with cunning light. He picked up a glass of wine and walked to Ningchuan with a smirk on his face. Ningchuan, come, let's have a drink, Shanks said with a smile. At this time, Shanks wanted to get Ningchuan drunk, so that he could take the opportunity to ask some secrets that were not easy to ask about on weekdays. For example, why Ningchuan could learn the fruit abilities of others, and why can the sword in Ningchuan's hand, called Thunder Fire Sword, attack the enemy by itself? Where did this sword come from? Can I find someone to make such a sword? Seeing Shanks with a smirk on his face, Ningchuan guessed it directly. He must have been up to no good. However, for the doubts in Shanks' heart, Ningchuan also guessed it. Okay, then cheers. Drink it in one gulp. Whoever can't finish it will be fined. Hearing Ningchuan's words, Shanks' face suddenly showed a hint of joy. This kid actually wants to compete with me in drinking? I'll get him drunk and get all his secrets out. However, an hour later, Shanks, whose face was flushed with alcohol, looked at Ningchuan, who was still sitting there like nothing happened, and showed an incredible look on his face. Why aren't you drunk yet? I don't believe that I can't drink more than you. Come on, continue. 2 hours later, Shanks was already drunk and a little unstable. Ningchuan still looked at him with a smile. What Shanks didn't know was, the alcohol that Ningchuan drank was instantly frozen by him using the power of the ice fruit. No matter how much Ningchuan drank, he would not get drunk. Why do I feel like you cheated? Shanks couldn't help but look at Ningchuan with sleepy eyes. Shanks, let's not talk about drinking for now. Let's talk about business. I want to invite Yuta to join my team. My ship is full of children of similar age to her. It will be more lively with her. Shanks did not expect Ningchuan to invite Yuta on board. This surprised him. Invite Yuta on board? Shanks was silent for a while, and suddenly felt that Ningchuan's proposal seemed feasible. After all, leaving Yuta alone in the kingdom of music, they were more or less reluctant. In this kingdom of music, there was no one familiar to Yuta. This was undoubtedly a very cruel act for a little girl. After thinking for a long time, Shanks turned his head and looked at Yuta. He could not make decisions for Yuta. Everything had to be based on Yuta's wishes. Yuta, what do you think? Hearing the question from his father Shanks, Yuta looked at Nami, Nokiko and Kuina, who had been with him for the past 2 days. Then he looked at Ningchuan, who was handsome, powerful and sang well. A glimmer of expectation suddenly flashed in his eyes. She nodded slightly and looked at Shanks seriously. I want to go to sea with brother Ningchuan and the others. It's really not fun to be with a bunch of big men like you, Dad. It's best to have Sister Nami and the others accompany me. Hearing Yuta's voice, Shanks exchanged glances with the other members of the Red Hair Pirates, all nodded seriously. With Ningchuan by Yuta's side, Yuta's safety is naturally not to worry about. All of them have seen Ningchuan's strength. It's not ordinary strong. Wuda is even safer on Ningchuan's ship than on theirs. Okay, I'll listen to you. Wuda, remember not to cause trouble to Ningchuan on the ship. Shanks warned him earnestly like an old father. Wuda is already over 10 years old and can take care of herself. Dad, you're so nagging. Everyone couldn't help laughing when they heard Wuda's complaints. Shanks touched his nose with embarrassment, a little at a loss. After making sure Wuda was on board, Ningchuan called Shanks out alone. With the help of Ningchuan's frozen fruit, a lot of alcohol in Shanks' body was discharged. It made him sober temporarily. Okay, you little bastard. You used this trick to cheat when you were drinking, right? After waking up, Shanks couldn't help cursing. Ningchuan wasn't angry about this. He looked at Shanks and smiled. Let's not talk about those insignificant things for now. Before we part, I want to make one last deal with you. What do you think? Hearing Ningchuan's words, Shanks couldn't help but ask with great curiosity. Deal? What deal? Tell me about it. Ningchuan didn't beat around the bush and spoke directly and seriously. If you teach me how to avoid the gods, I will give you a supreme big knife. Of course, it can't compare with my thunder and fire sword, but it should be better than your griffin. Shanks was immediately frightened by Ningchuan's words. Supreme big knife? You have a supreme big knife? Where did you get these? Did you dig up an ancient treasure? And your thunder and fire sword is also in the treasure, right? Hearing this, Ningchuan smiled and shook his head. No, I made them all by myself. Hearing this, Shanks was stunned in place. What the hell? You're a legendary swordsmith. Chapter 82. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's about the same. It's just the level of crushing all the swordsmiths in the world. That sword that can move by itself was also made by me. Ningchuan smiled and said something that almost scared Shanks to death. Crushing all the swordsmiths in the world. You are so bold. Shanks couldn't help but complain, however, although he didn't believe it, but after all, the fact of the thunder fire sword was in front of him. This made him have to believe it. Except when he met Ningchuan, he had never seen anyone with a sword that could move by itself and send out terrifying slashes. When he confirmed that Ningchuan was not only powerful, but also a legendary swordsmith, Shanks was shocked beyond words. How old is Ningchuan now? Not only has he walked ahead of countless people in practice, his talent in swordsmithing is also so amazing. Could it be that the Joy Boy that Captain Roger mentioned back then is this guy? Shanks stared at Ningchuan for a long time, and couldn't help but guess in his heart. Shanks, pick any of these supreme swords. At this moment, Ningchuan suddenly interrupted Shanks' thoughts. Looking at the supreme swords that Ningchuan took out after returning to his boat, Shanks couldn't help but frown. He observed carefully, but found that these supreme swords were exactly the same in appearance and quality. This made Shanks feel helpless and surprised. Judging from the quality of these swords, they are indeed the legendary supreme swords. But for some reason, the styles and materials of these supreme swords are exactly the same. Just like the products made by machines in some technologically advanced countries, but this is a supreme sword. How could it be made in batches like those machine products? Shanks couldn't figure it out no matter what. Ningchuan, how do you want me to choose? Aren't these knives all the same? There was a bit of helplessness in Shanks' words, but also a hint of confusion. Made in the same place and at the same time. They must be exactly the same. Do you want it or not? If not, I'll put it away. Hearing Ningchuan's urging, Shanks responded immediately. Yes, of course not. This is the supreme sword. There are only a few in the world. Am I stupid? How can I not want this good thing? But because these knives are so similar, Shanks had to pick the one that he liked the most. As soon as he got it in his hand, he felt a force of hot lava entering his hand. He stretched out his fingers and flicked the knife. Listening to the buzzing sound coming from the knife, Shanks showed a satisfied look on his face. It's a good knife indeed. For a great swordsman who uses a sword, getting a good knife is enough to make people happy. Since you have already taken the knife, then leave the divine bane to me next. Ningchuan threw the remaining supreme swords on the ground casually, as if throwing away garbage. He didn't care at all. Such a scene made Shanks inexplicably sad. This is a supreme sword. This kid actually treated them like this. It's really too much. If other swordsmen on the sea who don't have supreme swords see this scene, I'm afraid they will want to beat Ningchuan up. Looking at Ningchuan's somewhat wasteful scene, Shanks was heartbroken, but he could do nothing. After all, these swords belong to Ningchuan, not him. How to deal with them has nothing to do with him. Helplessly, Shanks had to choose to turn a blind eye. Come on, let's go over there. I'll teach you how to dodge. Shanks walked ahead helplessly. He looked back from time to time at the supreme swords that Ningchuan had casually thrown on the ground. He thought it was a pity. Soon, Shanks brought Ningchuan to a cliff. There was an endless sea in front of him. It's a good place to practice sword moves. I don't know where you got the idea that I learned how to dodge. Originally, I kept this thing to deal with you, but I didn't expect that I would have to give it to you now. It's really fate. Ningchuan rolled his eyes at Shanks' words. You can't even kill demons with this dodge, and you want to keep it for me? Shanks, are you a little too confident? Shanks was embarrassed by Ningchuan's words. Ahem. You're overdoing it, kid. I just learned this move not long ago, so its power is not fully exerted. If I am given some more time, I can kill the demon. It's just not as easy as yours. Shanks' last words were very low, as if he was afraid that Ningchuan would hear it. That makes some sense. Ningchuan naturally knew the power of the divine avoidance. Shanks, who had just learned this move, certainly could not exert its full power, but in the original work, Shanks relied on this move more than 10 years later. With one easy knife, Kid's entire pirate group was killed in seconds. Stop talking nonsense, let's get started. Finish the practice early and go back to bed early. Listening to Ning Chuan's relaxed voice, Shanks felt helpless. If someone else said that, he could practice divine avoidance without much effort, Shanks would definitely give him a divine avoidance without a good mood, just to see how he learned it. But Ning Chuan, this perverted kid, is different. He really has this possibility. Forget it, just treat it as a test of the sword. It's not worth getting angry with this kid. Anyway, I'm the one who's angry. Helpless, Shanks took out the newly acquired Supreme Blade. With a large amount of Conqueror's Haki injected, the whole Supreme Blade seemed to come alive. The magma lines on it seemed to start dancing under the drive of Haki. Feeling the changes in the Supreme Blade in his hand, Shanks showed a hint of surprise on his face. He had never tried to use the Supreme Blade to perform divine avoidance. Divine avoidance. With a low shout, Shanks swung his sword. The powerful force seemed to tear apart time and space in an instant. The sea was easily split, the reefs shattered under the sword energy, and even the clouds in the sky were cracked by the pressure of this domineering aura. The scene was spectacular. Ningchuan stood aside, using the observation domineering aura to carefully observe Shanks' every move. System, start settlement. Congratulations to the host for successfully observing the 3 seconds of God's avoidance and activating the 10,000 times return system for cultivation. Start practicing settlement now. Settlement successful. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the 30,000 seconds of cultivation return for observing God's avoidance. The host has a deep understanding of the sword move God's avoidance. For this sword, Shanks has slowed down to 3 seconds. However, it is still too fast and cannot be practiced directly. It needs to be practiced several times. Just when Shanks was about to ask Ningchuan if he needed him to demonstrate it again, he saw Ningchuan actually began to imitate his previous movements. He started practicing directly. Oh my God, no way. You're ready to master the divine evasion after just watching it once. Chapter 83. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Things happened just as Shanks guessed. Ning Chuan only read it once, and then started practicing divine repellence according to his own understanding. He summoned the Thunder Fire Sword and took a deep breath. He opened his own domineering Haki to the maximum, and then swung the sword. Suddenly, a violent domineering Hawkeye attached to the sword began to fly out from Ning Chuan's sword. It's just that the momentum of this sword is very amazing, but the power, it didn't even cut the sea. Surface, Ning Chuan's first sword did not achieve the shocking effect that Shanks showed, but in Shanks's opinion, it was enough to shock him and widen his eyes instantly. What the hell? You can strike a sword the first time you practice divine repellence. You know, when I practiced this thing, it took a lot of effort. If this kid is given some more time, he will probably make great progress, right? That just when Shanks was shocked that Ning Chuan struck a powerful blow the first time he practiced divine repellence, Ning Chuan spoke in his heart. System, start the settlement. Congratulations to the host for successfully practicing divine avoidance for 5 seconds, activating the 10,000 times return system. Start the practice settlement now. Successful settlement. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the return of 50,000 seconds of cultivation for practicing divine avoidance. The host's use of the sword move divine avoidance has been greatly improved. Looking at Ning Chuan's silence at this time, Shanks thought to himself. It started. I've seen this scene, this brat is going to use his amazing talent again. That seeing Ning Chuan's silence, Shanks couldn't help but think back to when he was on the battlefield, the way Ning Chuan stole moves from him. Ning Yuan at that time was exactly the same as now. Even if this brat learns fast, it will probably take him a whole night to really master this move. This offensive move is different from those auxiliary ones. Only by absolute understanding and use can you really master it. That just when Shanks was about to wait patiently until dawn, Ning Chuan in front of him moved again. After getting the cultivation returned by the system, Ning Chuan swung his sword again and slashed out the second sword. This sword was much more powerful than before. The powerful domineering swept out. The sword energy was so sharp that it instantly split the sea in two again. Seeing this scene in front of him, Shanks rubbed his eyes in disbelief. When he saw the sea that was split by a sword slowly recovering, he couldn't help but roar in his heart. What the hell? The second strike can split the sea. Although it is not as large and strong as my strike. But this already has the prototype of a divine evasion, just like it has been practiced thousands of times. That when Shanks was shocked, Ning Chuan continued to speak in his heart. System, continue to settle. Congratulations to the host. Then, the third strike, the fourth strike, the power of each of Ning Chuan's subsequent divine evasions increased in an incredible way. He seemed to have found a rhythm that resonated with the divine evasion, and each strike was more powerful than the previous one. Finally, when Ning Chuan slashed out the 10th strike, a force that seemed to destroy the world instantly appeared in front of Shanks. It seemed that in front of this terrifying power, even if there really was a god in this world, then he had to honestly avoid Ning Chuan's terrifying strike. After this sword was slashed, the sea in front of the two was completely separated. The sword light stretched for dozens of kilometers, and the rocks on the seabed were easily cut off by this sword. A huge canyon in the sea was formed. The clouds in the sky were also disturbed by Ningchuan's sword energy, splitting dozens of kilometers away from the middle. The shocking scene in front of him made Shanks stunned. Ningchuan's attack was more terrifying than the sword he had slashed out before. However, what Shanks didn't know was, after this sword, Ningchuan silently said another sentence in his heart. System, settlement, that the next morning, the sun was shining and there were no clouds in the sky. It may be because of the influence of Ningchuan's sword swing yesterday that the clouds in the sky were driven away. This is a good day to go out to sea. Wooda, say goodbye to your father. We should go out to sea and see other places. Ningchuan rubbed Wooda's little head and said softly. Not long after, Ningchuan and his group bid farewell to the Shanks group and the enthusiastic people of the Kingdom of Music. They set off on a new journey with Xiao Nami standing at the bow, looking at Ningchuan who was moving out the mahjong table. He smiled. Ningchuan, where are we going next? Hearing Nami's question, Nokigo, Kuina, and Yuta all looked at Ningchuan with expectation. Ningchuan naturally knew what these little cuties were thinking. He put the mahjong table away, pointed to the distant horizon, and said with a smile. It's time to go to the Grand Line. As soon as the words fell, a hint of excitement suddenly appeared on the faces of the four little ones. That's the Grand Line, a place that everyone who goes to sea yearns for. After determining the route, Nami started to steer the ship directly, turned the direction and started heading for the next destination. From the map, we can go to the Grand Line in the East China Sea. In addition to going through the doldrums, we can only cross the upside-down mountain, or fly over from the 10,000-meter-high red earth continent. Ningchuan can ensure that he can achieve any of these three roads, and it is also very smooth. However, if he chooses the latter two roads, Ningchuan will have to work harder. This is undoubtedly fatal to Ningchuan, who has always been lazy. It is better to walk the upside-down mountain honestly. If you walk the upside-down mountain, you can also go to Rogue Town on the way. This place is quite famous. It is not only the place where the pirate king Roger was executed, but also the gathering place of many pirates who are ready to challenge the Grand Line. However, Ningchuan is indifferent to these. He went to Rogue Town for only one purpose. He was going to find a guy named Adelomio. This guy has a bug-level fruit on his body, the barrier fruit. This thing was broken once in the fantasy world of the song fruit with different world rules. At other times, it performed very well. It can block all attacks in the world. What's more, this is the record in Bartolomeo's hands. If it was in Ningchuan's hands, this fruit ability would definitely play a greater role. Ningchuan and Nami played mahjong on the sea for several days. Finally, they came to the port of Rogue Town from the territory of the Kingdom of Music. The dock of Rogue Town was crowded with people, and various ships from all over the world were moored on the shore. There were all kinds of shops on the street. Many of the goods sold inside were never seen in the East China Sea. The four little cuties were instantly attracted by such a lively scene. Even Kuina, who didn't participate in playing mahjong and was only concerned with practicing swordsmanship. At this time, they all looked at the shops selling novelties with shining eyes. Ningchuan glanced at them and said with a smile, "If you like Rogue Town so much, then go up and take a look. By the way, you can spend as much as you want in Rogue Town today. Buy whatever you like, and your captain will reimburse you." Chapter 84. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Thunderfire Sword, watch the boat. Whoever dares to come up and steal things will be killed directly. Ningchuan will not be polite to thieves who dare to come up and steal things. Hearing Ningchuan's order, the tip of the Thunderfire Sword moved slightly, as if nodding. Just like that, Ningchuan took the four little cuties and started to stroll around Rogue Town. Now Ningchuan still has more than 20 million baileys on him, which can be spent at will. Even if you accidentally spend too much, there is no need to worry. There are so many pirates in Rogue Town. Just catch a few, kill a few, and you can go to the Navy base to exchange a lot of bounties, especially those guys with tens of millions of bailey bounties. It's just Ningchuan's mobile ATM. Just like that, Ningchuan took the four little ones to start a crazy shopping mode in Rogue Town. What delicious food, fun things, beautiful clothes, and skirts. Just close your eyes and sweep. Even some stores were cleared out by Ningchuan and his friends. The shop owners were so happy that they called it the God of Wealth. However, this is Rogue Town after all. Ningchuan and his friends spent so lavishly. Naturally, they would be targeted by some guys with bad intentions. However, Rogue Town is an extremely important place for the Navy. Most of the pirates here are very low-key. They dare not attack Ningchuan in the street, so they had to wait for them near Ningchuan's boat at the port. Ningchuan's boat is easy to recognize. The pirate flag with 5 portraits directly shows their identities. Some brave pirates wanted to sneak up and steal some valuable things when they saw that there was no one on Ningchuan's boat. However, they didn't have time to throw the grappling hook on Ningchuan's boat. A burst of sword light swept over. The unlucky guys instantly turned into a pile of minced meat, and blood splattered all over the ground, which was very scary. Seeing this scene, the following pirates were so scared that they froze there, not daring to move. They never dared to attack Ningchuan and his ship again. At the same time, Ningchuan used the power of the song fruit to create a world. All the things they bought were temporarily stored in this world. After asking about the location of the tavern, Ningchuan took Nami and the others to the tavern. After all, there is no better place to get information than the tavern. On the way to the tavern, Nami asked curiously, "Ningchuan, is the Bartolomeo you are looking for strong?" "Not strong, but definitely not weak." Ningchuan smiled and rubbed Nami's head. explaining seriously. Bartolomeo's barrier fruit, once the barrier is opened, it is basically invincible and can block all attacks in the world. After hearing Ningchuan's words, Wuda asked curiously. Barrier fruit? What is that ability? Is it as powerful as my song fruit? Hearing this, Ningchuan smiled and explained. Barrier fruit can create an invisible barrier that can defend against all attacks. But if he was pulled into the world of the song fruit by you in advance, and you changed the rules of the world, then his barrier fruit will be invalid. After hearing Ningchuan's explanation, Wuda's little face showed a hint of excitement. Ha! My fruit is still powerful. Guina heard the conversation between Ningchuan and them and asked with a hint of curiosity. Is the barrier fruit so powerful? Then if the great swordsman in the world, such as Ningchuan, draws a sword, can he break the barrier? Ningchuan smiled and shook his head. As long as the rules of the world remain unchanged, the barrier fruit is the strongest and no one can break it. Guina smacked her lips, feeling a little incredible about the perversion of the barrier fruit. At this time, a hint of excitement flashed in Nokigo's eyes. She knew that Ningchuan's purpose in looking for Bartolomeo was to get his ability. If Ningchuan could get a barrier that no one could break, then they wouldn't have to worry about him when Ningchuan was fighting. The few of them walked quickly and soon came to the busiest tavern in the town. As soon as the 5 of them entered the tavern, they immediately attracted the attention of everyone inside. Ningchuan didn't care about the eyes of others. He walked straight to the highest point in the tavern. He grabbed the microphone from the bunny girl and shouted directly to everyone in the tavern. Who knows where Bartolomeo is? One piece of news, 1 million Bailey's reward. As he said, Ningchuan took out a bag full of gold coins from his arms. The golden coins shone brightly under the bright red lights of the tavern. Hearing Ningchuan's voice, everyone in the tavern was stunned for a moment. They looked at the gold coins in Ningchuan's hand, and their eyes showed eagerness. However, before anyone came up to tell Ningchuan the news and receive the reward, some noisy voices sounded at this time. Looking for Bartolomeo? Are you crazy? That kid is a new gangster in this town, a devil fruit ability user. Don't look at the young age of Bartolomeo, he is an unforgivable bastard. What do you want to find him for? If you go to fight him, I advise you to take a break. Just when the others were arguing, suddenly, a dozen strong men with dragons and tigers tattooed on their bodies, who were not good people at first glance, pushed away the onlookers in front of them arrogantly and walked towards the singing stage. Boy, give the money to your uncle. Let the 4 girls behind you drink with Grandpa, and Grandpa will take you to find Bartolomeo. The bald man in the lead walked towards Nami and the others with a lewd smile. Hey, girl, come and drink with Grandpa. He hadn't finished his words yet. Ningchuan stretched out his hand and waved it slightly forward. The next moment, the dozen strong men were instantly split into a pile of minced meat by Ningchuan's ability to split into pieces. Only the bald head of the bald man in the lead was left lying on the ground intact. After killing all these guys, Ningchuan looked at Nokigo and asked. Is it a pirate? Yes, the leader is called Cherokee, the leader of the Tiger Hunter Pirates, with a bounty of 3 million Baileys, and they are just some trash. Hearing Nokigo's words, Ningchuan sneered, then he kicked the bald man's head in front of a blond strong man who was trembling with fear. 3 million Baileys, you're lucky if you get more. It's you, tell me where Bartolomeo is. Ningchuan's voice was like the whisper of a devil at this moment. How dare the man chosen by Ningchuan disobey? He told everything clearly. In order to prevent Ningchuan from finding someone and bringing him back to trouble him, he even drew a map for Ningchuan and the others. After Ningchuan picked up the map, he left the tavern with Nami and Yuta without looking back. He went straight to Bartolomeo's gang headquarters. After Ningchuan and the other 5 left, the strong man he chose looked at his wet pants. He felt a little embarrassed. But after looking at the head worth 3 million Baileys on the ground, his face suddenly showed a hint of excitement. I picked up 3 million Baileys for free. I made a lot of money today. Go buy a new pair of pants now. At the same time, Smoker was investigating the murder of a thief at the port. He heard from his men that someone was killed in the tavern. It was the 5 children hanging on the flag of the pirate ship with the murderous sword at the port. Smoker did not hesitate at all and turned into a puff of smoke and rushed to the tavern. How dare you be so unscrupulous in my territory? Do you treat the law and our navy as decorations? Asshole. Chapter 85. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ning Chuan and his group followed the map drawn by the sturdy man. They soon found the gang headquarters where Bartolomeo was. There were several gangsters in black suits standing outside the gang headquarters. When they saw Ning Chuan and his group walking straight towards them, they immediately became alert. Who are you? What do you want to do? A guard asked sternly. Ning Chuan replied indifferently, I came to see Bartolomeo. I have something to discuss. What can a little kid do? Do you think that my lord Bartolomeo is about the same age as you, so he will take you in? Humph, what a joke. Boy, this is not the place for you to come, get out. Looking at these unfriendly gatekeepers, Ning Chuan was not going to talk nonsense with them. He just smiled coldly and then released the domineering aura of the king. The powerful aura spread instantly, and several gang members widened their eyes in an instant. It was like being hit on the head by a heavy object. He fell to the ground very weakly and fainted. Ningchuan and his companions did not stop and continued to move forward, along the way. All the gang members who came out to intercept them were stunned by Ningchuan's domineering aura. When they came to the courtyard, Ningchuan saw a little kid with green hair practicing his strength there. At this time, Bartolomeo was not much older than Ningchuan, but because he accidentally ate the barrier fruit, relying on the invincible ability of the barrier fruit, he easily cleared the gangs in Rogue Town and became the gang boss of the town. At this time, Bartolomeo also heard the movement from outside. He looked back and saw that several guys who were younger than him had boldly entered his territory. Seeing this scene, a trace of anger flashed in Bartolomeo's eyes. What are these men doing? Can't even stop a few kids. No wonder they are so useless. Bartolomeo sneered and dropped the heavy object in his hand. He rushed out of the house without hesitation and shouted loudly at Ningchuan, the leader. Boy, you dare to come to my territory to make trouble. I think you are tired of living. As soon as he finished speaking, he was ready to test his recent practice results. He rushed towards Ningchuan with his fists waving, looking at Bartolomeo who rushed towards him with flaws all over his body. Ningchuan was slightly stunned and couldn't help smiling in his heart. It seems that this kid doesn't take me seriously. Then I'll teach you a lesson. Before Bartolomeo approached Ningchuan, Ningchuan dodged and flashed in front of him at lightning speed. He grabbed his neck and lifted him up high. In an instant, Bartolomeo's eyes were full of horror. He didn't even see clearly how Ningchuan appeared in front of him. Bartolomeo tried to get rid of Ningchuan's control, but no matter how hard he tried, Ningchuan's hands were like a pair of iron clamps, making him unable to break free anyway. Ningchuan sneered at Bartolomeo who was struggling in his hands. You are too weak. I advise you to surrender honestly, so as not to suffer some unnecessary pain. Hearing Ningchuan's mocking words, Bartolomeo's face flushed and he roared angrily. Let me go. You bastard. If you have the ability, fight me fairly. I am a devil fruit ability user. If you give me a chance to use the power of the devil fruit, you will never be my opponent. Hearing Bartolomeo's unwilling words, Ningchuan smiled slightly, let go directly, and let go of Bartolomeo. Okay, I'll give you a chance, so what? You don't think your devil fruit ability is really invincible, do you? Bartolomeo sneered. He didn't care about Ningchuan's ridicule at all. He was confident that the barrier fruit was the strongest devil fruit in the world. As long as he opened the barrier, Ningchuan would lose no matter what. Bartolomeo didn't hesitate at all and immediately activated the ability of the barrier fruit. The next moment, a transparent barrier appeared in front of him instantly. At the moment the barrier appeared, he spoke with more confidence than before. Smelly boy, now let me see how you break my barrier. Looking at Bartolomeo's extremely confident look, Ningchuan was not in a hurry, with a teasing smile on his lips. It seems you are ready. Then, next, I will show you what your barrier fruit is. How was it broken? As soon as Ningchuan finished speaking, the next moment, he started to sing the divine song Genie Taimei. As soon as the prelude of the song came out, Nami and the others had the previous experience. He immediately blocked his ears with his hands to avoid being invaded by the terrifying mental pollution, and the defenseless Bartolomeo was immediately pulled into the world of Kunquan by Ning Chuan. What's going on? Where am I? Bartolomeo, who was pulled into the world of Kun by Ning Chuan, looked around in horror. The surrounding scene was completely changed, and everywhere he looked was Kunquan playing basketball. No matter what ability you use. As long as I can use the barrier fruit, I won't lose. After saying that, Bartolomeo directly tried his best to maximize the ability of the barrier fruit, and Ningchuan looked at this scene with a faint smile on his face. He did not continue to pay attention to Bartolomeo. Instead, he concentrated on observing the whole process of him using the barrier fruit. System, start settlement. Congratulations to the host for successfully observing the barrier fruit ability for 10 seconds. Now start the practice settlement. Successful settlement. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the observation of the barrier fruit ability for 100,000 seconds of cultivation return. The host's understanding of the barrier fruit ability has improved. After understanding the barrier fruit, Ningchuan continued to observe. 10 seconds later, Ningchuan continued to speak in his heart. System, continue settlement. Congratulations to the host. Just when Ningchuan was about to take the barrier fruit in his hands relying on the system's settlement ability, Bartolomeo angrily cursed in the world of Kun. Asshole! You despicable villain, do you only know how to use such dirty tricks? Come and fight me head-on if you have the guts. Ah! Assholes, you guys with middle-parted hair wearing overalls, don't come over here. Ningchuan ignored Bartolomeo's curse. He had been carefully observing the ability of the barrier fruit and constantly calculating, until a satisfying voice sounded in his mind. Congratulations to the host, you have successfully mastered the ability of the barrier fruit. After hearing this voice, Ningchuan finally showed a satisfied smile on his face. The ability of the barrier fruit has been mastered. Then Bartolomeo is useless. It's time to completely break his 3 views. Let him know that the barrier fruit is not really invincible. Chapter 86. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After successfully obtaining the barrier fruit ability, Ning Chuan walked slowly to Bartolomeo. Staring at Bartolomeo, who was already tortured by Kunquan, he smiled. Bartolomeo, do you really think your barrier fruit is invincible? Hearing Ning Chuan's words, Bartolomeo fought back without hesitation. Whether it is invincible or not, you will know if you try it. Besides making these things to disgust me and torture me, what else can you do to me now? As long as I have the barrier in my hand, I will not lose. After that, Bartolomeo continued to activate the barrier fruit ability. He made his barrier into a huge sphere. He hid himself inside, in order to isolate the terrible sound that made people want to explode. Looking at Bartolomeo's appearance at this time, Ning Chuan smiled slightly. The next moment, his voice directly penetrated the soundproof barrier that Bartolomeo had worked so hard to create. It reached his ears. Let me tell you, this is Kun's world, another world. The rules of the outside world are invalid here. That is to say, your barrier can be broken here. Hearing Ning Chuan's words, Bartolomeo showed a trace of disbelief on his face. This is beyond his understanding. Looking at the strange expression on Bartolomeo's face, Ning Chuan smiled slightly, then he raised a fist and hit it casually. There was a click. The next moment, the barrier that Bartolomeo was proud of was shattered. Seeing this scene, Bartolomeo's eyes widened in disbelief, his face full of shock. This is impossible. My barrier fruit is invincible. Although Bartolomeo still didn't want to believe what he saw, but the facts were in front of him, so he had to believe it. Nothing is invincible here. Because this is the world I created. Your barrier is completely vulnerable in my world. Listening to Ning Chuan's disdainful words, Bartolomeo's confidence collapsed instantly. He never thought that the ability he was proud of would be so vulnerable. Under the dual oppression of Ning Chuan and Kun's world, his will began to waver, and he even began to doubt his life. Seeing that Bartolomeo's confidence was almost hit by himself, the power of the barrier fruit was also in his hands. Bartolomeo had nothing worth Ning Chuan's concern, so Ning Chuan withdrew to Kun's world, bring Bartolomeo back to the real world. At this time, Bartolomeo had completely lost the will to fight, looking at Ning Chuan, who was not even his age standing in front of him. His face was pale and his eyes were full of fear. When facing Ning Chuan, his heart was full of powerlessness. This was a feeling he had never experienced before, and it was very difficult for him to accept. Seeing Bartolomeo being devastated by his own blow, he sat on the ground in frustration, and his eyes lost their former brilliance. Ning Chuan felt a little sorry for him when he saw him like this. He walked up slowly, patted his shoulder, and said with a smile, "Bartolomeo, are you giving up now? You should know that your barrier fruit ability is very powerful, and there are only a handful of people in this world who can break your barrier. Except for me and Yuta, no one else has such an ability." Hearing Ning Chuan's words, Bartolomeo finally raised his head, and a glimmer of hope rekindled in his eyes. "Really? If you don't believe it, forget it." Although Ning Chuan's words were not polite, but when Bartolomeo heard it, he still admired Ning Chuan in his heart. "Senior, can you tell me your name?" "Ning Chuan." Ning Chuan had just finished saying his name. Bartolomeo stood up from where he was. He looked at Ning Chuan excitedly and said loudly, "Brother Ning Chuan, I want to be your disciple. You are so powerful, you will definitely be able to teach me how to become stronger." Ning Chuan. Regarding Bartolomeo's proposal, Ning Chuan waved his hand and refused. "I don't accept disciples. But if you are willing, I can give you some advice and help." Hearing this, Bartolomeo bowed to Ning Chuan excitedly. "Senior Ning Chuan, I will be your fan from now on. I will follow the steps of the senior and become stronger step by step." At this time, Bartolomeo has decided to treat Ning Chuan as idol. He secretly vowed to follow Ning Chuan's footsteps and become stronger. Seeing this scene in front of him, it was Ning Chuan's turn to be dumbfounded. It was not until this time that he finally remembered the other side of Bartolomeo. This guy is a fanatical fan. In the original work, his fanatic object is Luffy. Now, this guy's fanatic object has become himself. Thinking of this, Ning Chuan couldn't help rubbing his head. He felt a little helpless about Bartolomeo. "Good guy. Why did you forget this? If I had remembered this earlier, I should have withdrawn after getting the barrier fruit." Just when Ning Chuan had a headache and wondered how to deal with his fanatical fan, a figure suddenly broke into the door of the gang headquarters outside. To be precise, it was a figure with white smoke. After Smoker came to Bartolomeo's territory, looking at the gangsters lying on the ground, he thought Ning Chuan was killing people at will again. He was so angry that he directly used the power of his smoke fruit and broke in from outside. The moment he saw Ning Chuan, he angrily waved the 10 hands of sea stone in his hand. He rushed straight towards Ning Chuan. "You little devil, you dare to ignore the laws of Rogue Town and kill people at will in Rogue Town. I will arrest you and send you to the underwater prison." Hearing Smoker's voice, Ning Chuan showed a sneer on his face. He knew Smoker very well. This guy was obsessed with justice and wanted to be a good navy. However, his strength could not support his great dream. Looking at Smoker rushing towards him, Ning Chuan dodged Smoker's attack easily. "I killed a few beasts, and your navy is so enthusiastic. Where were you when those pirates bullied people in Rogue Town?" Ning Chuan's words really made it difficult for Smoker to answer. "No matter how much they committed crimes, you shouldn't." Smoker's words were not finished yet. Ning Chuan sneered directly. His figure flashed and appeared in front of Smoker in an instant. The next moment, the fist with armed color domineering hit Smoker's abdomen directly. He was beaten so hard that he couldn't get up for a while. "If you don't have strength, don't talk to me about justice. In the face of absolute strength, I am justice." Chapter 87. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After being hit by Ningchuan's punch with armament hockey, Smoker was in so much pain that he covered his stomach and fell to the ground. He couldn't believe how Ningchuan had defeated him. He clearly had the ability of the nature fruit. Logically, a fist shouldn't have hurt him. However, even after being hit by Ningchuan, Smoker still half knelt on the ground, looking at Ningchuan with an angry face and said, "I will never recognize your justice. Even if they are pirates, you can't just kill them casually. At least the law is needed." Before Smoker could finish his words, Ningchuan stopped talking nonsense. He directly pinched the back of his neck with armament hockey and said coldly, "It's good to have a righteous heart, but if you want to talk about the law, at least everyone in the world must be equal before the law can be applied. With the celestial dragons and the world government pressing down on your navy, how can you talk about fairness and law? If you really want to change all this, then become stronger, otherwise everything is just empty talk. After saying that, Ning Chuan slapped Smoker unconscious, he threw him to Bartolomeo. Send this silly boy to the naval base. After all, there are not many people who have such ideas these days. Listening to what Ning Chuan just said, looking at Smoker that he threw into his hands, Bartolomeo's eyes were full of admiration. As expected of Senior Ningchuan, you are still saying such righteous words, which ordinary people can't say. I understand. I must become stronger to help Senior Ningchuan overthrow the celestial dragons and the world government. Senior Ningchuan, please rest assured. I will definitely work hard to become stronger. Bartolomeo directly pulled Smoker up and ran towards the navy base. At the same time, he secretly vowed in his heart to follow Senior Ningchuan's example and become stronger. Looking at Bartolomeo who had already run away, Ningchuan was a little confused. What did this kid understand? I didn't say I wanted to overthrow the celestial dragons and the world government. In the original book, Bartolomeo burned Shank's flag in order to help Luffy become the pirate king. Now he shouldn't join the revolutionary army to play big in order to help me. However, after thinking carefully, Ningchuan found that it didn't matter even if Bartolomeo joined the revolutionary army. Anyway, if Ningchuan and his crew continue to sail like this, they will have to confront the celestial dragons and the world government sooner or later. By then, these blind guys will really provoke their own people. It seems that destroying them is also a good choice. After solving this matter, Ningchuan took Nami and the others to continue to stroll in Rogue Town. They planned to have a good time in Rogue Town for a few days. Enjoy the rare leisure time before heading to the Grand Line. At the same time, Smoker woke up and found himself lying on the bed in the naval base. He tried to recall everything that happened, and Ningchuan's figure appeared in his mind. That bastard boy. How dare you humiliate me like this? I will not let you go. Thinking of this, he was about to rush out to continue looking for Ningchuan. However, when he thought of the scene of being knocked down by a punch, Smoker couldn't help but stop his steps. Ningchuan's strength is too strong. And he knew nothing about him, so Smoker wanted to investigate some information about Ningchuan first, then make plans. Thinking of this, Smoker immediately rushed to the general's office at the naval base. The naval general stationed in Rogue Town is a vice admiral. In a small town, a vice admiral is stationed. This shows that the naval headquarters attaches great importance to Rogue Town. Seeing Smoker pushing the door in, the vice admiral couldn't help but frowned. Smoker is a newcomer he is optimistic about. Not only is he powerful, he also has a natural devil fruit. Another most important point is that this newcomer has a strong sense of justice. However, looking at Smoker's anxious look now, the resident vice admiral was a little surprised. Mr. Lieutenant General, do you know a kid named Ningchuan? Smoker asked excitedly as soon as he entered the office. Ningchuan? Who are you talking about? Ningchuan. The admiral of the Navy station stood up excitedly when he heard the name. He grabbed Smoker's neck and asked anxiously. Where is Ningchuan? Did you offend him? Come on, I'll take you to apologize to him. If you dare to offend him, I can't protect you. Smoker was frightened by the admiral's reaction, jumped, with a hint of curiosity, he continued to ask cautiously. Admiral, is there anything special about Ningchuan? Hearing Smoker ask this question, the admiral took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. It's normal that you don't know. You should have heard about the naval battle to capture Buggy a few days ago. This kid named Ningchuan was the main force in the naval battle to capture Buggy at that time. His strength can be compared with the 4 emperors in the New World. Marshal Sengoku specifically explained that all navies must not offend him easily. Hearing this, Smoker was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. Just now, he actually wanted to fight a strong man at the level of the 4 emperors. And wanted to catch him in the sea prison. What a joke. No wonder he could break his natural devil fruit ability in one go. So that's it. After knowing all this, he couldn't help but feel a little scared. However, after he was scared, he still spoke unwillingly. Is it difficult? Can such a strong man kill people at will? Murder? Who did Ningchuan kill? Hearing Smoker say that Ningchuan killed people at will. The resident lieutenant general was shocked and asked quickly. I killed more than a dozen pirates in the tavern and killed many thieves who wanted to steal things on the ship at the port. Hearing this, the resident lieutenant general jumped up excitedly. He slapped Smoker on the head. Are you stupid, kid? Is this called killing at will? This is clearly to eliminate harm for the people, that the resident lieutenant general yelled at Smoker with some regret. Quick, go and count the bounties on the guys Ningchuan has killed. Send them to him before he leaves. Remember, don't act rashly when you meet this kind of person in the future. Our mission is to uphold justice, understand? People like Ning Chuan are helping us uphold justice. Listening to his immediate superior's words, Smoker suddenly felt that the word justice in the Navy seemed a little funny. He couldn't help but recall what Ning Chuan had said to him before. Only absolute strength is called justice. Now it seems that what Ning Chuan said is really right. As long as the strength is enough, even the Vice Admiral of the Navy will start to lick it. Should I also find a place to improve my strength? 3 days later. At the dock of Rogue Town, Ning Chuan and the other 5 had a great time in Rogue Town. It was time to set off for the Grand Line. The boat with a flag with 5 people's heads painted on it once again raised its sails. This time, they were going to that legendary place that every seafarer longed for. The Grand Line. Chapter 88. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After leaving Rogue Town, Ning Chuan and his 5 companions drifted on the sea for 3 days and successfully arrived at the foot of the upside-down mountain with turbulent currents, looking at the red soil continent in front of them, which was 10,000 meters high and towering into the clouds. It was like an insurmountable barrier, stretching before their eyes, and in the center of this red soil continent, there was a huge gap. The water flow at this gap was different from other places. In other places, the water flow was from high to low, and the water flow at this gap was from low to high. From the turbulent sea below, it flowed directly to the top of the mountain. This is one of the ways to the great route, upside-down mountain. Take the boat on the rising current, and you will be able to successfully cross here in a short time. You can successfully reach the entrance of the great route. But to go from the turbulent sea to the turbulent rising current, but it is a huge obstacle. I don't know how many pirate ships were pushed by the surging waves and missed the rising waterway, accidentally hit the red earth continent and were shattered, sunk in the bottomless sea, but for Ningchuan and his friends, this difficulty was almost nothing. At this time, Ningchuan's mind was not on the rising waterway that was so narrow that only one ship could pass through. Looking at the red earth continent that was 10,000 meters high in front of him, Ningchuan couldn't help but think of the agreement he had made with Garp before. As long as he could break the red earth continent, Garp would worship him as his master. Thinking of this, Ningchuan couldn't help but smile. Do you want to remind that old guy Garp here? Let him not forget the original agreement. Do it as soon as you say it. Ningchuan was seen controlling the small boat of 5 people. Help Nami and the others to drive the boat to the rising water first. Let the 4 of them take the rising water to climb to the top of the upside-down mountain. He stayed at the foot of the mountain, facing the towering red earth continent in front of him. Let's get started. Leave a message to Garp here. By the way, let the world know that I, Ningchuan, am going to the Grand Line. Ningchuan smiled slightly and flew directly into the air. Buddha form. Devil's body. As Ningchuan's heart moved, the next moment, the power in his body surged, and he instantly transformed into a half-body golden Buddha and half-body black devil. At this time, the sacred and evil powers flowed in his body together. There was no incompatibility. Ningchuan gathered all his strength, and the powerful armed color domineering gathered on his fist. With the swiftness of thunder, he instantly punched the red earth continent. Boom! The huge impact force caused the entire red earth continent nearby to shake slightly. Looking at the huge pit 100 meters wide that he punched out, Ning Chuan was a little dissatisfied. After all, this huge pit of 100 meters is too insignificant for the entire red soil continent. However, if other people knew what Ning Chuan was thinking, they would probably be scared to death. This is the hardest red soil continent in the world. Ning Chuan punched down and a huge pit of 100 meters wide was created. He is still not satisfied. This is too much. It would be better if it was more powerful. System, settle it. Congratulations to the host. After the return cultivation was successfully received, Ning Chuan's eyes were firm, and he continued to settle it one punch at a time. He punched the red soil continent one by one. Each of his punches was constantly strengthened with the help of the system. Wherever his fists went, the rocks collapsed, and the entire red soil continent shook more and more violently. Later, each of his punches seemed to carry a force that shook the world. As if he was going to completely destroy this endless continent. At the same time, far away in the middle of the Grand Line, the celestial dragons of Mary Geos on the Red Earth continent also felt the vibration of the Red Earth continent under their feet. They didn't understand what terrible thing had happened. The Red Earth continent actually began to shake. Feeling that the vibration of the Red Earth continent was getting more and more intense, the celestial dragons of Mary Geos walked out of their luxurious houses one after another, looking at their feet with horror. For hundreds of years, the extremely solid Red Earth continent has never had such an earthquake-like shaking. This unprecedented vibration caused panic among everyone. The Knights of God, who were responsible for the safety of the celestial dragons, quickly moved out at this moment to try to stabilize the situation. The members of the Knights evacuated the panicked celestial dragons, while vigilantly checking around, guarding against any potential threats. Since the last time a celestial dragon was killed, the security of the entire Holy Land is much stronger than before. At this time, in the largest house in Mary Joa, as the 5 old men who control the highest authority in the world, all felt this terrifying shock. The 5 elders frowned and looked at each other, not understanding what happened. Saturn, is there something wrong with the Red Earth continent? It should be more than 10 years before the sea rises and floods the whole world. Saint Maz, who is in charge of the environment, frowned and looked at Saint Satan. The current situation seems to be very different from Saint Satan's previous research. I don't know the specific situation, but it should not have much to do with the rise in sea levels. Saint Satan is very confident in his research. He directly denied Saint Maz's guess. Just when the other 3 were about to say their guesses, suddenly, the 5 of them received an order at the same time. After receiving this order, without any hesitation, the 5 of them stood up and walked towards the palace in the deepest part of Mary Geos. Accompanying them was the current leader of the Knights of God, Saint Gellinger. When the 6 of them arrived at the deepest palace, they all knelt down on one knee towards the throne at the top. Lord Yim, sitting on the throne, Yim nodded gently. She looked at the 6 people in silence for a long time, and slowly spoke. Be sure to investigate everything. That it was just such a simple sentence. It directly made the 6 people under the throne feel a huge pressure. They didn't speak, and after receiving the order, all left the palace quietly. Until they left Yim's sight, the 6 of them finally breathed a sigh of relief. Lord Imu has spoken. Let's prepare for action. We must investigate what happened to the Red Soil continent. The Red Soil continent is very important to us. If the sea level rises in the future and submerges everything, then the Red Soil continent will be our last safe haven. Until 10 minutes later, the shaking of the Red Soil continent finally stopped. Ning Chuan was standing in the air at this time. He smiled and looked at the huge words he had carved on the Red Soil continent that stretched for thousands of miles. Garp, come and become my disciple. That he stood here and admired his masterpiece for a while with satisfaction. If he knew, he had just smashed and carved words on the Red Soil continent, and it actually attracted the attention of the 5 elders and Imu, then he would definitely punch the Red Soil continent dozens more times. Scare these guys. Chapter 89. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Soon, Ningchuan caught up with the boat that rushed to the top of the upside-down mountain. Seeing Ningchuan coming back, Nami and the other 4 finally breathed a sigh of relief. After all, the noise just now was too scary. They were afraid that Ningchuan would have an accident. What happened just now? It's so scary. Nami covered her chest, terrified. Just now the whole mountain was shaking. I thought there was going to be a big earthquake. Nokigo also added with a worried look. That's right, we were scared to death just now. Yuta was also terrified, and she didn't feel relieved until Ningchuan came back. Although Kuina is not good at expressing herself, but looking at the worried expression on her face, it is still there. It is not difficult to guess that she was also worried about Ningchuan's safety just now, looking at the 4 little cuties who were worried about themselves. Ningchuan smiled slightly and comforted them, and told them that it was he who carved the words on the red earth continent just now. Hearing Ningchuan's words, Nami's curiosity was immediately aroused. What did you carve on the red earth continent? That the other three also looked at Ningchuan with curiosity. Nothing. Just left a message for Garp, asking him to remember to come and become his disciple. Hearing this, Nami and Nokigo couldn't help laughing out loud. You are so funny. Will Mr. Garp be so angry about the words you carved? Then I don't care. After all, that was the agreement at the time. As an old senior, he can't deny it, right? In this way, the five of them rushed to the top of the upside-down mountain with laughter, then under Ningchuan's control, successfully let the five-person boat dive down along the waterway, rushed quickly towards the famous scenic spot at the foot of the mountain, the source of the Grand Line, Cape Twins. However, just when Ningchuan and his boat were about to reach the foot of the mountain, a whale larger than the island suddenly crashed straight into their boat. When Nami and the other four little cuties saw this giant whale comparable to the Sea King, their faces suddenly changed in fear. Nami looked at the big whale that was about to hit the boat with great nervousness and exclaimed, "Oh no, our boat is going to be smashed by the whale." Yuta held the side of the boat tightly and looked at the huge figure in horror. What should we do, brother Ningchuan? Nokigo and Kuina couldn't help showing nervous expressions. After all, it was a huge creature that suddenly flew towards their boat. They hadn't had such a plan yet. Seeing this flying whale, Ningchuan recognized it at the first time. It should be the whale Labu guarding the Twin Cape. He knew that Labu didn't come to crash into their boat. It was hitting the red earth continent, trying to go back from the upside-down mountain to find his former companions, but it was a pity. All of its former companions had died on the Grand Line. Only Brook was still alive. Ningchuan knew clearly about Lab's pitiful life, so he was not going to kill the giant whale that accidentally hit their boat. Ningchuan's figure was like lightning, rushing to the whale's head at a high speed. He stretched out a hand and pressed it casually on Lab's head. He pressed the whale Lab back abruptly. At the moment when Lab was successfully pressed into the sea by Ningchuan, their boat also successfully passed the waterway down the mountain and rushed into the sea of the Grand Line. However, although Ningchuan and his boat were safe, but Lab, who was pressed into the sea by Ningchuan's hand, was very unconvinced. In the sea, it has never lost to those sea kings in terms of strength. How could it lose to a tiny human? So it took a serious look at Ningchuan. It dived directly into the depths of the sea, and with the help of the buoyancy of the seawater, it rushed towards Ningchuan again, ready to knock this human away. So that he could see the true power of the island whale. Boom! Lab rushed out from the depths of the sea in an instant like a cannonball. His scarred head slammed into Ningchuan standing in the air. However, what the whale Lab did not expect was, when its huge body just flew into the air, Ningchuan once again held it down steadily. System, settlement. Congratulations to the host for successfully subduing the whale with power for 5 seconds, activating the 10,000 times return system for cultivation. Start cultivation settlement now. Settlement successful. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the 50,000 seconds of cultivation return for subduing the whale's power. The host's power has been greatly improved. With the return of cultivation, this time, Ning Chuan used much more force than last time. He actually used the terrifying power that could suppress the giant whale in mid-air to press the whale Labu back into the sea from the sky. Plop! The sound of a giant falling into the water resounded throughout the sea. Labu was pressed into the depths of the sea by Ningchuan. It kept struggling in Ningchuan's hands, creating huge waves. However, as the power in Ningchuan's hands grew stronger and stronger, Labu had no chance to break free from Ningchuan's palm. Ningchuan had to suppress the ferocity in his body and slowly regain his calm. Too powerful, Ningchuan. Nami, who was watching this scene on the shore, couldn't help but shout excitedly. Brother Ningchuan is so powerful. Yuta's eyes flashed with admiration. Our Ningchuan has become stronger again. Nokigo couldn't help but admire. When can I become as strong as Ningchuan? Gui now looked at Ningchuan, who subdued a whale with one hand, with longing in her eyes, looking at the whale Labu, which gradually stopped struggling in his hands and whose eyes became clear. Ningchuan knew that it had given up. Therefore, Ningchuan also released his hand holding Labu. Let it return to the sea. When Lobo returned to the sea, it was no longer as crazy as before. Instead, it stopped there quietly, looking up and down at Ningchuan, wondering what it was thinking. Just when Nami and the others were curious about what the whale was going to do. Suddenly, an old man climbed up from the whale's blowhole. This was an old man wearing a flowered shirt and a flower petal hairstyle. However, looking at his skills, he didn't look like he was at this age. Seeing this guy coming out of Lobo's body, Ningchuan couldn't help but smile. He knew that this old man had another identity besides the keeper of the Twin Cape Lighthouse. Crocus, the ship doctor of Pirate King Roger. He is considered one of the best doctors in the world today. The terminal illness of the Pirate King Roger back then, many people with healing devil fruit abilities were helpless, but he was able to use the medicine he prepared, successfully relieved Roger's pain and extended part of his life, allowed Roger to reach the end of the Grand Line in the last minute and become the Pirate King. The moment he saw Crocus coming out of Lab's body, Ningchuan couldn't help but smile. After all, there is no doctor on Ningchuan's ship now. This is just right, the opportunity to study medicine has come. Chapter 90. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as Crocus came out, he saw Ningchuan, Nami, and the others. He couldn't help but sigh. Are all the kids going out to sea now? It seems that Roger's influence is really amazing. After whispering to himself for a few words, he didn't intend to pay attention to Ningchuan and the other kids. Instead, he walked directly to the big head of Lab. He wanted to see why it stopped hitting the red Earth continent so early today. If it were on a normal day, it would take at least a few more hours before it stopped. Crocus walked to Lab and asked softly. Lab, what's on your mind today? Hearing Crocus' words, the whale Lab made a series of calls. Crocus, who was familiar with Lab, listened carefully. He widened his eyes in disbelief. What? You said your strength is not as good as a child. Really? Is that child so scary? After Crocus confirmed with Lab again and again, finally, he looked at Ningchuan in disbelief. Lab's clear eyes and firm response made him believe it all. No wonder they were able to cross the upside-down mountain and come to the Grand Line. So that child is so strong. With a hint of shock and curiosity, Crocus walked towards Ningchuan and the others. Ningchuan couldn't help but smile when he saw Crocus coming over on his own initiative. He knew that this old guy would definitely come over out of curiosity. In order to learn medical skills from him later, Ningchuan took the initiative to introduce himself. Hello, Mr. Crocus, my name is Ningchuan, and these are my partners Nami, Nokigo, Yuta, and Kuina. Crocus looked at Ningchuan and the others carefully and nodded. I didn't expect that people going to sea are getting younger and younger now. Heroes are born young. Crocus couldn't help but sigh, thinking back then, when they went to sea, they were as old as their uncles and aunts. Mr. Crocus, we are going to the Grand Line. But before we set off, I hope to learn some medical skills from you. Hearing Ningchuan's words, Crocus frowned, looking at Ningchuan seriously. He couldn't help but speak. Young man, I'm just an ordinary lighthouse keeper. How can I know any medical skills? If you want to learn medical skills, you should find someone else. Looking at Crocus's refusal, Ningchuan showed a smile as if he had known it earlier. Mr. Crocus, don't hide. I know your true identity. You were once the ship doctor of the Pirate King Roger. It was with your help that Roger had the chance to reach Raftel, right? Crocus's face suddenly changed when he heard this, and a trace of shock flashed in his eyes. How do you know this? I learned it from Shanks. Ningchuan thought for a moment and pushed the matter onto Shanks. Only after hearing Shanks' name did Crocus's expression gradually ease, and his hanging heart finally let go. Since Shanks recommended you here, I'm relieved. However, learning medical skills is not something that can be done overnight. It will take at least 1 or 2 years. If you don't have that much time, then I can only teach you some simple first aid knowledge. It has been confirmed that he is one of his own. Crocus no longer guards against Ningchuan too much, because he believes in Shanks's vision of people. Ningchuan naturally refused to learn some first aid knowledge from Crocus. Mr. Crocus, I want to learn medical skills, not simple first aid. I must ensure the health of my crew members at sea. But don't worry, my learning ability is quite strong, just teach me with confidence. Hearing Ning Chuan's words, Kuroka's was stunned for a moment. It was the first time he had seen such a confident boy. However, Kuroka's couldn't help shaking his head. He didn't say much. Instead, he walked quickly into the lighthouse. Not long after, he came out with a thick stack of medical books. Those books were so thick that they were almost as tall as 2 Nami. No, memorize these books first, and you will be considered to have entered the door after you have memorized them. I still have a lot in my room. You can continue to study after you have memorized these. Ning Chuan. Ning Chuan naturally knew the difficulty of studying medicine, but looking at so many books related to medicine, he still felt a little dazed. There are so many books, no wonder the uncle said it would take at least 1 or 2 years. Time is needed. Nami and the others were surprised to see that there were so many books to learn in order to enter the medical field. However, Ningchuan soon regained his composure. Although there are many books related to medicine, but he has a system after all, so it must be much easier for him to learn than ordinary people. So Ningchuan picked up a book called Human Anatomy on the top and started reading it. It's called reading. In fact, Ningchuan just used his observation Hawkeye to roughly browse through it. He stayed on the content of each page for no more than 10 seconds. About 5 minutes later, Ningchuan gently closed the first book and said silently in his heart, "System, start settlement." Congratulations to the host for successfully browsing Human Anatomy once and activating the 10,000 times return system. Start practicing now. Settlement successful. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the return of the cultivation for browsing Human Anatomy 10,000 times. The host has successfully mastered the knowledge of anatomy. After hearing the last sentence of the system, he successfully mastered the knowledge of anatomy. Ning Chuan couldn't help but smile. He turned his head and looked at Kuroka's, who was frowning on the side, and said with a smile, "Mr. Kuroka's, I have finished 1 book." As soon as Ning Chuan finished speaking, Kuroka's couldn't help but show a trace of anger on his face. However, he didn't get angry, but suppressed his anger and looked at Ning Chuan seriously. Medicine is not a joke. How can you learn it just by flipping through a book? If you have this attitude, you should honestly learn some first aid knowledge. Looking at the somewhat angry Kuroka's, Ning Chuan said with a smile, "I am not just flipping through it casually. If you don't believe me, why don't you test me?" Hearing Ning Chuan still dare to quibble, Kuroka's couldn't help but prepare to argue with Ning Chuan. "Okay. If you really memorize it, then how many bones are there in the human body?" Hearing this, Ning Chuan couldn't help but smile slightly, and then spoke seriously. 206 pieces. 29 pieces on the head, 51 pieces on the torso, and 126 pieces on the limbs. Do you need me to tell you in detail how many pieces there are in each part? The 29 pieces on the head include. Listening to Ning Chuan's story, Kuroka's was dumbfounded. He picked up the book in confusion and flipped through it at Ning Chuan's pace, then he put it down in confusion. How could he remember it so clearly after flipping through it so quickly? Could this guy be a genius in medicine? Kuroka's didn't understand how Ning Chuan did it.